Hello, I'm Scott Walker, Executive Director of CSAR. Our fourth annual conference, Maintaining Creativity, kicked off in Toronto on October the 16th, 2019, with a keynote address by actor-director Sheila McCarthy on the theme of the conference, Inspiration. The address took the form of a conversation between us about the people who've inspired her, the famous, the infamous, the familial. We're presenting it in 3 parts. Here's part 1.
How you been?
I'm good.
Yeah, what have you been up to?
Well, I just realized I did a few cheat sheet notes.
Good.
On a script that I auditioned for and didn't get the part, so. I was just sides going, yeah, what happened to that part? Yeah. I'm good. I'm honored to be here. This is inspirational for me to be here. When Scott asked me to do this, I said, well, I don't do TED Talks. I don't talk for 45 minutes. I said, please ask me questions and then I could talk till the cows come home. So you agreed to that. But I did just want to say a few things. Inspiration is such a huge, big field of ideas. And for the last 4 months, I've been thinking, what could we possibly say about inspiration? And how thousands of times a day I am inspired. I'm inspired by this young fellow who took my suitcase up the stairs for me the other day when I was coming home on the TTC. That inspired me. I was inspired by you even asking me. I have to say that the one person who's inspired me the most in my life was my mother. And she's been gone for 8 years, but she was young at heart, my mother. She was orphaned very early and was raised by a wonderful great aunt in Coburg, who I adored. And my mother was not a noisy person. Her inspiration came from being busy. She was just busy her whole life. And her philosophy, I think she took it from Ingrid Bergman. It could have been Winston Churchill, but I'm pretty sure it was Ingrid Bergman, was happiness is good health and a short memory. And I mean, if you think about it, that's an amazing philosophy. My mom was a homemaker. She was eccentric. She scrambled eggs with Danny Kaye at an Argonaut party in her 20s, and then married my father, her doctor, and raised 4 kids. And I think in the generation now, she probably wouldn't have had kids, and I say that with the utmost respect. She was a career woman in the kitchen, although she did cook Christmas turkey several days ahead of time, put it under an electric blanket in the garage. Why I'm alive, but she inspired me a million different ways. And I think of her often. She always cheered me on, but it was no big deal. And my father was the great leveler. My father was a stutterer, and he was a doctor, a radiologist, and she married him and was his party girl, I guess. And his sense of self, his sense of inspiring me was to be my great leveler. He was my moral compass. He was the one who said, oh, you're going to Hollywood. What about your Canadian career? And I'd go, well, okay, now I'm going to stay in Canada. I'm going to do a season at the Stratford Festival. Well, there goes Hollywood. I go, well, you know, Dad, what would you have me do? He would watch me on stage by watching the person next to him to see what they thought of me. And I say that with respect, but he was a fearful man, and I think that he was afraid that I would fail. And that gave me strength, I guess, and inspired me to not fail and to keep going. So, boy, I could talk about that for a long, long time. There is something delicious in how we are inspired by worrying about failing. And it keeps us going. So I take my mother's busyness and I take my father's, we used to call him sharp intake of breath, because when we decided to do something, he would go, and that was, so sharp intake of breath, I think always inspired me to not take no for an answer, even when Bruce Willis wanted me to. There's a story there, but...
I'm looking forward to hearing it.
But really, in my career, oh my God, I listen to Marie's bio and I think, wow, I could tap dance. And I never could figure out anything else to do, except maybe clean houses. I always thought it would be wonderful to be a cleaning lady. And I'm not even half kidding. My mom always had one, and she made delicious egg salad sandwiches with her covered in saran wrap with a pickle, and I could go through people's things, and I love to clean. Cleaning inspires me. Wow. I was even cleaning this morning, thinking about, wow, why does that inspire me? And I think as an actor, it's the one thing that I can control in my life. You know, I'm 63 now, and I've entered a new phase of my career by opting out of not doing anything to my face. Every time I sat in the makeup chair of Little Mosque on the Prairie, I would say to the makeup artist, oh God, I forgot to have a facelift. I'm so sorry. I just can't believe it. However, I was sort of born looking like an old bird, and now I am an old bird, and I'm working a lot, so yay.
Don't change a hair for me.
Well, no, honestly, if you think about it, does it really matter? I mean, does it help your career? David Ferry, I know you did the Botox, but did it help your career? You just told me today that you're doing fuck all right now, and I go, well, you shouldn't have done it.
Parts of my lips I can't pronounce.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm all over the map with this, but I have been continually inspired over the years, and you can ask me questions now, because there's certain people I would like to talk about that have inspired me.
I don't think there's anything else to say, really.
Well,
no. But I think I can find something. All right, why don't we talk about the people who have inspired you?
Yes.
Yeah,
Well,
your mother, of course.
My mother, my
first.
father, of course,
Your
my
father.
family,
Yeah.
yes. I would say when I was doing Emily of New Moon in Prince Edward Island, I was working with a little girl. Her name is Martha McIsaac, and she was 10 years old, and she played Emily. And she was being interviewed by Sid Edelman, the Toronto newspaper critic, and he said to her, and I was privy to be part of the interview, but he said to her, "You're 10, and you're playing an entire, you're covering a whole series. You are Emmeline. How are you going to do it? You've hardly acted before." And she said, "I'm just going to pretend." And he said, "Well, yes, but you're working with, John Neville, and Martha Henry's coming on the show, and Michael Moriarty plays your father, and Tom McCamus is in the show, and how are you going to do it?" And she said, "I'm just going to pretend." And he said, "Well, I understand that, but really, really, there's got to be more to it than that." And she said, "I'm just going to pretend." And I have never forgotten that. So as an actor, to be inspired, it never feels like it's going to be that simple. But I hearken back to her words, and I think, wow, at 10 years old, she was a huge inspiration to me, to never forget that. And to never forget that that's all we're doing. I've been so lucky I get to play dress up and occasionally get paid for it. And, it is a remarkably lucky thing that I have always done. And I would also say that adjacent to that thought of inspiration, being and staying in Canada, we've always been allowed to do everything. You know, cartoons, TV, film, theater. We don't get pigeonholed as much. Marty Short said to me once, you know, you move to LA and they love what you do. They love your comedy, your vaudeville hook, but now do it our way. And I thought, you know, I've never felt that by staying in Canada. I've always felt, you know, I had to keep working, and that it was, the doors were open in all kinds of walks of the arts. And so that has been a remarkable thing here, not down there so much.
Part 1 of the keynote conversation between Sheila McCarthy and me, Scott Walker, from Maintaining Creativity for Inspiration. Coming up in Part 2, Sheila talks about how she gained inspiration from the legendary Canadian dance team Alan and Blanche Lund, along with Bruce Willis and Liza Minnelli.